The untold connection between Bitcoin and WikiLeaks. You may think you know the story of WikiLeaks, you may think you know the story of Bitcoin, but what if I told you? The two are connected in ways almost no one talks about. What if I told you that without WikiLeaks, Bitcoin might never have become what it is today? And without Bitcoin, WikiLeaks might have disappeared forever. This is the untold connection between Bitcoin and WikiLeaks. A story buried under years of censorship, financial warfare, and digital rebellion. To understand it, we have to go back to a time before Bitcoin mattered, before governments even cared about the blockchain. It's 2006, and a man named Julian Assange launches WikiLeaks, a radical idea. A global platform where anyone could anonymously leak classified information, military secrets, government corruption, corporate scandals, and the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it was. For years, WikiLeaks became a thorn in the side of powerful governments, publishing leaks that shook the world, from war crimes to diplomatic cables that exposed what really happens behind closed doors. But that power came at a cost, because when you challenge the world's most powerful institutions, they eventually come for your funding. By late 2010, WikiLeaks became the target of an unprecedented financial blockade. Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Bank of America, and Western Union all cut them off. The world's most powerful banks decided that WikiLeaks didn't deserve access to money. Overnight, donations stopped. WikiLeaks was silenced, not by arrests or violence, but by something far quieter: financial censorship. It was a digital chokehold. Assange himself called it an extrajudicial financial blockade. WikiLeaks had no way to receive money from supporters. The banks had done what no government had managed to do: cripple WikiLeaks financially. But while this was happening, in the shadows of online forums, a new technology had just been born. A white paper, written by an unknown person or group calling themselves Satoshi Nakamoto, described a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, one that required no banks, no governments, and no intermediaries: Bitcoin. At the time, Bitcoin was barely an experiment, worth less than $1, traded by a handful of cryptography enthusiasts. But it represented something profound: a tool that could make censorship obsolete. Now, here's where things get interesting. As WikiLeaks' funding dried up, some supporters suggested they should accept Bitcoin. It was the perfect match: a platform that couldn't be silenced, funded by a currency that couldn't be controlled. But Satoshi Nakamoto himself warned against it. In December 2010, he wrote, "It would have been nice to get this attention in any other context. WikiLeaks has kicked the hornet's nest, and the swarm is headed towards us." Satoshi knew what was coming. If WikiLeaks adopted Bitcoin too early, governments would notice, regulators would swarm. Bitcoin, still fragile and small, could be crushed before it had a chance to grow. So WikiLeaks waited, and Bitcoin quietly matured in the background. But by June 2011, the decision was made. WikiLeaks officially began accepting Bitcoin donations, and that changed everything. Overnight, a flood of Bitcoin began pouring into WikiLeaks wallets. People from around the world sent small amounts: 1 Bitcoin, 2 Bitcoin, 10 Bitcoin, tiny donations that today would be worth millions. Bitcoin became WikiLeaks' financial lifeline, the one channel the banks could never block. And in return, WikiLeaks gave Bitcoin something it desperately needed: legitimacy. For the first time, Bitcoin wasn't just a toy for programmers. It was a weapon against censorship. Julian Assange later said, "Bitcoin and WikiLeaks helped keep each other alive." He wasn't exaggerating. WikiLeaks survived because Bitcoin existed, and Bitcoin survived because WikiLeaks showed the world why it was needed. But this story runs even deeper. You see, this wasn't just about donations. Over time, pieces of WikiLeaks data began to appear in the Bitcoin blockchain itself. Embedded messages, tiny fragments of leaked files, even references to Cablegate, the trove of US diplomatic cables that shook global politics. These weren't just symbols, they were proof that information could live forever on a ledger no one could alter or erase. The Bitcoin blockchain, originally designed to store transactions, had evolved into something far greater, a permanent, unstoppable archive for truth. Years later, a mysterious project known as Project Spartacus would take this even further by inscribing tens of thousands of WikiLeaks Afghan war logs directly onto the Bitcoin blockchain, using a new protocol called ordinals. The goal? To make sure those documents could never be deleted, never censored, never forgotten. The connection between Bitcoin and WikiLeaks had transformed from survival into immortality. And yet, this alliance also revealed something dangerous. When money can't be censored and truth can't be deleted, the people in power lose control. Governments, intelligence agencies, and financial institutions all realized what had happened. And they weren't happy about it. WikiLeaks had proven that the financial system could be bypassed. Bitcoin had proven that censorship could be defeated with code. And together, they showed that power could shift from the few to the many. The media rarely talks about this connection because it exposes a truth they'd rather you didn't think about. It exposes how fragile the global system of control really is. When banks can decide who gets to speak, who gets funded, and who gets silenced, Bitcoin becomes the ultimate act of resistance. And WikiLeaks was the first real test. If you ever wondered why Bitcoin faced such aggressive opposition early on, or why regulators suddenly began to take notice after 2011, it's because WikiLeaks forced the world to pay attention. It showed that Bitcoin wasn't just digital money. It was freedom encoded into mathematics, and that scared them. Today, the partnership between Bitcoin and WikiLeaks continues in subtle ways. WikiLeaks still holds Bitcoin reserves. Supporters still send crypto donations. And fragments of its publications are forever etched into the Bitcoin blockchain. Unalterable, uncensorable, unstoppable. Every time a new block is mined, those bits of history are preserved again and again, rebroadcast to every node across the world. It's as if Bitcoin itself became a living monument to truth. But here's the real takeaway. This connection, this hidden alliance, revealed the future of the internet. It showed us that money and information are converging. That truth, once uploaded, can become as unkillable as Bitcoin itself. WikiLeaks may have used Bitcoin to survive, but in doing so, it gave Bitcoin its soul. It gave Bitcoin purpose. Without that moment in history, without the blockade, without the censorship, without Assange's defiance, Bitcoin might have remained a niche experiment. Instead, it became a global movement. And that movement is still growing. Every time a journalist is silenced, every time a bank freezes an account, every time someone's voice is erased from the internet, the spirit of WikiLeaks and the power of Bitcoin echo louder. It's a reminder that truth and freedom need infrastructure, not permission. Julian Assange once said, "The goal is to use truth as a weapon against power." Bitcoin is that weapon's currency. It is the bloodstream of freedom in a world where control is the disease. So next time someone tells you Bitcoin is just for speculation or just digital gold, remember this story. Remember that in its DNA lies rebellion. Remember that it once saved an organization that dared to speak the truth when no one else would. And remember that somewhere, on an immutable ledger shared by millions, the history they tried to bury still lives forever. This is the untold connection between Bitcoin and WikiLeaks, a connection that changed the world and continues to shape the future of money, freedom, and truth. If you found this story fascinating, if you believe people should know how deep this connection truly runs, then like this video, share it, and subscribe for more, because what you just heard is only the beginning. There are more hidden stories, more unseen alliances, and more truths buried beneath the blockchain. Stay curious, stay aware, and remember, truth, like Bitcoin, never dies.